Linda Ronstadt is more than just a singer. She is a musical force, a voice that defined a generation and transcended genres. From country to rock, folk to opera, Ronstadt's dynamic range and emotional power made her one of the most celebrated and versatile vocalists of the 20th century. Her albums sold millions, her collaborations became legendary, and her awards, Grammy, Emmy, and even a National Medal of Arts, tell only part of the story. Behind that voice, however, stood an unshakable foundation: rhythm. At 78 years old, Ronstadt may have retired from singing due to her battle with progressive supranuclear palsy, PSP, but her mind remains as sharp and vibrant as ever. In a rare and heartfelt interview, she opened up about the heartbeat of her music, the drummers who shaped her sound, kept her grounded, and gave her the pulse to soar. For Linda Ronstadt, rhythm was not just accompaniment, it was a conversation. She didn't just sing with her drummers. She trusted them, leaned on them, and followed their lead in moments of musical transformation. These drummers were not just bandmates. They were soul partners, interpreters of tempo, and guardians of groove. This video is more than a list of drummers. It is a journey into Linda's musical soul. We will explore her life, her collaborations, and why, even decades later, certain names still rise above the rest. These are the 6 drummers she named as her favorites, each with a special place in her heart and history. Born on July 15, 1946, in Tucson, Arizona, Linda Maria Ronstadt grew up in a household teeming with music and culture. Her father, Gilbert Ronstadt, owned a hardware store but was also a baritone singer with a love for Mexican ballads. Her mother, Ruth Mary Copeman, was a homemaker with English and German roots, exposing Linda to classical music and show tunes. The family would gather around for musical evenings, blending Spanish-language folk songs, Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, and pop standards. As a teenager, Linda soaked in everything: Hank Williams, Patsy Cline, the Everly Brothers, and opera records. She taught herself harmony singing by mimicking recordings, developing a gift for pitch and emotion. Her exposure to multiple genres at a young age would become a hallmark of her later career. Music wasn't just entertainment, it was identity. At 18, Linda left Arizona and moved to Los Angeles to pursue music more seriously. She joined up with guitarist/songwriter Kenny Edwards and bassist Bob Kimmel, forming a folk rock group called the Stone Ponies. They had modest success, most notably with the 1967 hit Different Drum, written by Michael Nesmith of the Monkees. Although the band didn't last long, it gave Linda her first taste of national exposure. Her voice, pure, emotive, and crystalline, drew attention from producers, songwriters, and major labels. She had something few others did: a completely natural vocal control that felt both intimate and powerful. From this point, she was poised to launch a solo career that would redefine genre boundaries. Linda's early solo albums leaned heavily on country rock and folk, aligning her with the rising Laurel Canyon scene. Her collaborations with producer Peter Asher, formerly of Peter and Gordon, were game-changing. Under Asher's guidance, she released Heart Like a Wheel, 1974, which catapulted her into superstardom. Songs like You're No Good, When Will I Be Loved, and It Doesn't Matter Anymore dominated the charts. She followed with hit after hit: Simple Dreams, Hasten Down the Wind, Living in the USA, and more. Unlike many of her peers, she refused to be boxed in. She covered everyone from Buddy Holly to Warren Zevon, and later, ventured into Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, Mexican mariachi music, Canciones de mi Padre, and even American standards with Nelson Riddle. What united all these musical forays? A voice that adapted to every setting, and a sense of rhythm that was precise, emotional, and perfectly in step with the beat. Behind every great singer is a great band. Linda was known for surrounding herself with the best musicians in the business. Her backing bands over the years included members of what would become the Eagles, Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner, as well as the cream of the LA session musician crop: Andrew Gold, Waddy Wachtel, Bob Glaub, and critically, some of the most respected drummers in the world. Ronstadt didn't choose her musicians lightly. She understood the role of groove and tempo better than most vocalists. Drummers weren't just timekeepers, they were mood setters. They shaped the feeling of a song before a single note left her lips. The collaboration between voice and drums was sacred. Linda Ronstadt was not only navigating the male-dominated world of 1970s rock and roll, she was leading it. She headlined massive arenas, sold platinum records, and held creative control at a time when few women could. While her beauty often got her attention, her talent kept her relevant. She fought to make room for women to be taken seriously as artists, not just singers or frontwomen. Her ability to pick and work with drummers, whether in the studio or on tour, became one of her greatest strengths. She knew when a song needed restraint, and when it needed raw energy. In many ways, her instincts as a bandleader rivaled those of top producers. In the late 2000s, Linda noticed something was wrong with her voice. She struggled to control her pitch and tone, something that had always come effortlessly. In 2013, she revealed that she had Parkinson's disease, later correctly diagnosed as PSP. It ended her ability to sing, but not her love for music. Even in silence, her ears remained sharp. She still listens to the greats, studies their work, and remembers every studio session in vivid detail. In recent interviews, she shared anecdotes about her bandmates, her favorite instruments, and the musicians who helped her build her sound. At 78, she's not performing, but she is still remembering, honoring, and celebrating the people who helped her become an icon. And when asked about the heartbeat of her music, she was clear: "I've always had the best drummers. They gave me my wings." For Linda Ronstadt, rhythm was more than a backdrop. It was the engine that powered her songs, the heartbeat that drove every lyrical phrase. While the spotlight often landed on her soaring vocals, Ronstadt herself was the first to acknowledge that her performances would not have been possible without the subtle, precise, and emotive work of the drummers behind her. As she once noted in an interview, "If the drummer doesn't feel it, the band can't feel it, and I can't sing it." Singing and drumming may seem worlds apart, but in Linda's case, they were intimately connected. Her vocal phrasing, always so natural, so emotionally calibrated, relied on rhythm and timing. She knew how to push or pull a note around the beat, how to let her voice ride the groove instead of fighting it. This came not only from instinct but from trust in her drummers. She wasn't classically trained in percussion, but Linda was a listener. She understood what made a groove compelling. Whether it was a straight-ahead 4/4 rock beat, a lazy country shuffle, or a Latin-inspired syncopated rhythm, she felt the difference, and responded accordingly. In rehearsal, she often worked closely with drummers, asking for subtle changes. She knew that a slightly different kick pattern could transform a song from good to unforgettable. Her precision demanded the same from her band. Ultimately, Linda Ronstadt was a singer who listened. She listened to melodies, to harmony, but above all, to rhythm. The best drummers, she said, taught her how to breathe with the beat, how to wait, how to jump in at the right moment. This ability made her beloved not only by fans, but by the musicians who worked with her. Drummers respected her because she respected them. In a world where percussionists are often overlooked, she gave them equal credit for the power of a performance. As we move forward, we will meet the 6 drummers Ronstadt named as her favorites. Each one left a deep mark on her music and her heart. Each had a different style, personality, and story. But they all had one thing in common: Linda Ronstadt trusted them with her voice. 1. John Guerin. John Guerin wasn't just a drummer, he was a storyteller with sticks. A founding member of the LA Express, Guerin's precision and jazz-inflected creativity made him one of the most respected studio drummers of the 1970s. For Linda Ronstadt, his playing was more than accompaniment. It was interpretive, melodic, and emotionally intuitive. Born in Hawaii and raised in San Diego, Guerin came up through the jazz world. He had played with artists as diverse as Thelonious Monk, Frank Zappa, and Peggy Lee before transitioning into session work in Los Angeles. When Ronstadt was building her early solo sound, she needed musicians who could match her vision of pop-infused country rock, and Guerin fit that mold perfectly. Guerin's work on Linda's early albums, especially Don't Cry Now and Heart Like a Wheel, gave her music a sophistication beyond the standard rock backbeat. His use of brushes, ghost notes, and accent shifts offered Ronstadt room to experiment vocally. His jazz background gave him a light touch on ballads and a flexible groove on upbeat tracks. He could anticipate her phrasing intuitively. "John listened like a singer," Linda once said. "He knew when to give me space and when to lift me up." One standout moment came during the recording of Faithless Love. Guerin's subtle drumming, mostly brushes and tight snare work, created a gentle backdrop that let Ronstadt's heartbreak spill through. Another example is I Can't Help It, If I'm Still in Love with You, where Guerin's restraint made the Hank Williams cover feel tender rather than melancholic. Guerin's contribution extended beyond technique. He often consulted with Peter Asher and Linda on arrangement ideas, always putting the song first. His studio presence was calm and reliable, never overplaying, never rushing. John Guerin passed away in 2004, but his drumming remains etched into the golden era of California rock. For Ronstadt, he was one of the first who understood that the rhythm section wasn't about volume, it was about dialogue. And in John Guerin, she found a conversational partner who never missed a beat. 2. Russ Kunkel. Russ Kunkel is a name that appears in the liner notes of almost every major singer-songwriter of the 1970s. Part of the famed session collective The Section, alongside Leland Sklar, Danny Korchmar, and Craig Dorge, Kunkel was a key ingredient in the California soft rock sound. His ability to deliver both groove and grace made him indispensable to Linda Ronstadt. Kunkel played on several of her most iconic tracks, including You're No Good, Blue Bayou, and Poor Poor Pitiful Me. While these songs vary in tempo and mood, what they share is Kunkel's impeccable timing and feel. He knew when to drive a chorus and when to let a verse breathe. You're No Good, with its strong backbeat and thumping toms, is a perfect example. Kunkel gives the song propulsion without overpowering Linda's voice. The fills are economical but unforgettable, adding drama without unnecessary flair. Linda frequently praised Kunkel's flexibility in the studio. He always knew how to serve the song. If it needed energy, he brought it. If it needed stillness, he stepped back, she once said in an NPR interview. Kunkel also brought emotional intelligence to the drum kit. On Blue Bayou, his restrained brushwork and hi-hat patterns paint a picture of longing. The beat doesn't cry, but it sighs, and that's exactly what the song needed. Beyond Linda's catalog, Kunkel worked with James Taylor, Jackson Browne, Carole King, and Bob Dylan. But he always held a special connection with Ronstadt. Their sessions were efficient, respectful, and musically rich. He was never just playing drums. He was helping tell her story.
3. Jim Keltner.
If Russ Kunkel was the heartbeat of soft rock, Jim Keltner was the soul of rock and roll. With a resume that includes John Lennon, George Harrison, Bob Dylan, and Ry Cooder, Keltner brought grit, groove, and soul to every project. For Linda Ronstadt, he was a rhythmic chameleon, unpredictable in the best way. Keltner worked with Ronstadt during the Simple Dreams sessions, including the smash hit, It's So Easy. His drumming gave the song its swagger, balancing tight syncopation with a bit of rockabilly attitude. Unlike some session drummers who played it safe, Keltner had an adventurous streak. He experimented with fills, cymbal crashes, and rhythms that pushed the song forward. What made Keltner unique in Ronstadt's eyes was his feel.
He didn't just keep time, he communicated.
His beats often carried emotional textures. On ballads, his drums could sound mournful, on rockers they exploded with joy. He always brought heart into the room, Ronstadt said. Even when we were just rehearsing, you felt like something special was happening. Keltner also influenced her live performances. During one tour in the late 70s, he rearranged the drum patterns on tumbling dice to better suit Ronstadt's phrasing. The result was a new version of the song that critics and fans adored. Keltner wasn't flashy. He rarely played solos. But he had an ability to read the room and the vocalist. That quality made him invaluable in Ronstadt's recording sessions. She often credited him with helping her feel safe enough to experiment vocally. Even decades later, when discussing her favorite studio memories, Ronstadt always returned to Keltner's name. He knew how to find the soul of a song, she once said. And he made sure the rest of us did too.
4. Don Henley.
Before he became the lead voice of the Eagles, Don Henley was just a talented drummer from Texas trying to make it in LA. One of his earliest major gigs? Playing behind Linda Ronstadt. In the early 1970s, Ronstadt's band included a group of young musicians who would soon become the Eagles. Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner. Henley wasn't just keeping time. He was harmonizing, arranging, and quietly preparing to change American rock forever. Ronstadt saw Henley's potential early on. He had a real feel for groove, and he could sing like a bird, she once said. She encouraged him to pursue both drumming and vocals, offering opportunities that helped him grow into a frontman. Henley's drumming was tight, clean, and expressive. On songs like Silver Threads and Golden Needles, his backbeat is firm and unfussy. His timing was impeccable, a trait that would carry over into Eagles classics like One of These Nights and Hotel California. More than anything, Ronstadt valued Henley's musical intelligence. He was detail-oriented, cared about arrangements, and understood how each instrument contributed to the emotional landscape of a song. She recalled him working closely with guitarist Bernie Leadon to craft smooth transitions between sections, something most drummers left to others. While Henley's career skyrocketed with the Eagles, he never forgot his time with Ronstadt. In interviews, he credits her with teaching him how to be a professional. She, in turn, took great pride in his success. Watching Don become what he became was like watching a star form right in front of you, she said. Henley remains one of the few drummers to successfully make the leap to lead singer and superstar. But before all that, he was Linda Ronstadt's drummer, and one of her most trusted.
5. Hal Blaine.
If you've heard a hit song from the 1960s or 1970s, chances are Hal Blaine played drums on it. A member of the famed Wrecking Crew, a loose collective of LA studio musicians, Blaine contributed to over 35,000 recording sessions and more than 150 US top 10 hits. Linda Ronstadt first encountered Blaine through Capitol Records connections in her early solo days. At the time, she was finding her footing as a solo act, and producers knew Blaine could give her the rhythmic support she needed. Blaine's strength was his ability to play anything: surf rock, pop, country, jazz, even orchestral pop. On Ronstadt's recordings, he added a layer of polish and professionalism that elevated her raw vocal power. His work on her early Capitol sessions gave her music a classic LA feel. What Linda appreciated most was his confidence. Blaine was never intimidated by a new arrangement or tempo. He walked into every studio session with ideas, and he delivered results quickly. His timing was machine perfect, but his groove always felt human. In the studio, Blaine was also a morale booster. Known for his puns, jokes, and endless energy, he kept things light even during long recording sessions. Ronstadt credited him with making some of her most grueling studio experiences feel enjoyable. There was a magic about Hal, she once told Rolling Stone. He could walk into a room and make everyone sound better, without trying to steal the spotlight. Blaine passed away in 2019, but his influence lives on in the work of every drummer who came after him. For Linda Ronstadt, he wasn't just a drummer, he was a master craftsman who made music sing.
6. Richie Hayward.
Richie Hayward, co-founder of the band Little Feat, brought a unique funkiness and spontaneity to every gig he played. Known for his syncopated, swampy rhythms, Hayward stood out in a sea of technically proficient but stylistically limited drummers. For Linda Ronstadt, he was a breath of fresh air. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Ronstadt began experimenting more with roots rock and southern-tinged sounds. Hayward, with his deep pocket grooves and unexpected fills, helped her explore that terrain. His work on her covers of Lowell Georgia songs, particularly Willin' and Roll 'Em Easy, gave the tracks an earthy authenticity. Hayward was known for playing slightly behind the beat, creating a relaxed but confident feel. Ronstadt adored this approach. Richie gave every song a kind of swagger, she said. Even the slow ones felt like they were walking with purpose. Unlike studio drummers who stuck to charts, Hayward was an improviser. He listened deeply to Linda's vocal takes and adjusted his playing in real time, responding to her phrasing, to her vibrato, to her breath. It created a live, intimate feeling that translated beautifully on record. He was also a fan favorite in her live shows. Audiences could feel the energy he brought to the stage: the funk, the soul, the looseness without sloppiness. Even when the rest of the band was locked in, Hayward danced around the groove, finding new spaces and textures. Ronstadt later called him one of the most musical drummers I've ever worked with. His work gave her license to explore rhythm in new ways and opened her up to future experiments in soul, funk, and even Latin fusion. Thank you for joining us on this video into the rhythmic heartbeat of Linda Ronstadt's legendary career. From the soul of the studio to the energy of the stage, the 6 drummers she named as her favorites were more than musicians. They were partners in artistry, timekeepers of emotion, and anchors of her unforgettable voice. If you enjoyed this video and want to discover more stories behind the legends of music, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment in music history. Until next time, stay curious and keep the rhythm alive.